It is now the time to close out the year with my favorite video to make. The top 20 best albums of the year. Surprisingly, there was a lot of good stuff that came out this year, both in terms of my favorites and surprises that caught my ear. So let's go back and see what I thought were the best albums of the year. Disclaimers for this video: there's going to be no EPs, cover albums, compilations, live albums, etc. Only studio albums will be here. I've also haven't heard every album that came out this year. No one has. I'm completely biased when it comes to my list, so if there's an album that you heard that's not on here, then it's either 1, I didn't hear it, 2, didn't think it was as good as you thought it was, or 3, it wasn't good enough to actually make the list. So let me know what you thought was the best albums of the year. Before we get into the official list, let's go over some honorable mentions, albums that I also thought were pretty good but not good enough to make the actual list. Now that you've seen the honorable mentions, let's start the official list of the top 20 best albums of 2023. If you were to tell me 5 years ago that Tom DeLonge would return to Blink-182 and make another album as the iconic trio, I would have told you that you're crazy. But miracles happen, and the OG trio of Mark, Tom, and Travis are back, filling our blackened emo hearts with One More Time. One More Time is the album that feels like an updated version of what we expect from Blink to go into. It's kind of like a combination of some of their past albums like Self-Titled, Neighborhoods, and Take Off Your Pants and Jacket. There are many serious songs here, as well as a good amount of joke songs, all with a familiar feeling with the presence of Tom DeLonge. The harmony and trade-off vocals from Mark and Tom still sound amazing to this day, and the music behind it is great. Travis Barker's drumming here is insane. He continues to be an incredible drummer, and the production on this album turned out a lot better than I expected. Many of the songs deal with serious stuff and get dark with songs like the title track and More Than You Know, while also having fun and lighthearted songs like Dance With Me, Turn This Off, Fuck Face, and even Edging. Don't look at me like that, Edging is fun. One More Time has that perfect combination of light and darkness in music. Does nostalgia play into me loving this? It plays a part, yeah, but it also feels like that this album was meant to be made for many people, and songs like Anthem Part 3 will be the soundtrack for us moving forward in life. It's been quite a long time since we last heard from Paramore. They're one of my favorite bands of all time, so when I heard Hayley Williams and company were making a new album, I was hyped, and This Is Why did not disappoint. Paramore made their return to rock with a different type of feel to them. If you were expecting something like All We Know Is Falling or Riot, then you're probably gonna be underwhelmed here. Instead, we got much more of a post-punk type of album, but the style is upbeat and also slower post-punk, so kinda like bands like Block Party and Interpol. So with the album itself, it's a post-punky, cathartic, sassy album that channels all the anger and hatred that Hayley, Taylor, and Zach has had in them since the last album. A lot has happened since then: the presidency of Trump, unwanted violence, and especially COVID-19. The band needed to vent here. It's almost passive-aggressive in a way, but it's all done in order to shut out all the negativity in the world, and something like that is something that many people just need to have. And songs like the title track and the news are amazing examples of that. That Catharsis was put out into a pretty fun album from front to back. Haley sounds amazing as always, and the spunky guitars and drums from Taylor and Zach gets you moving and grooving from many songs like Running Out of Time, You First, and Figure 8. This Is Why is another great example of Paramore channeling all the turmoil they've gone through individually and as a band and putting out into the world. This type of release of music is needed, and many people need this in order to keep moving on forward. This is why I love this band. Supergroups tend to be a one-off thing. They put out an album once, and most likely will never make another album again. It's happened a lot, but Crosses proved us wrong with their first album in 9 years, Good Night, God Bless, I Love You, Delete. If you don't remember who Crosses are, they're an electronic rock side project duo of Chino Moreno from Deftones and Sean Lopez of Far. With the release of this new album, they proved that these side projects can still go strong. Good Night has a lot of the goods that will satisfy longtime fans who've been starving for content. There are a lot of songs that are trippy and entrancing. The electronic elements with the beats goes very soothing, along with the calming and upbeat and chaotic elements as well. Combined with the guitars, bass, and drums, and you get an album with complete and utter vibe. Many of the songs here are hypnotic, like Invisible Hand, Pleasure, and Pulse Flag, as they put you in a trance, while the slower songs like Runner and Last Rites are nice and calming. But when there's heat, because Big Youth is one of the best songs of the year, featuring rapper LP of Run the Jewels. And this song is straight up flames with the beat switch. And I can't go without mentioning Girls Float, Boys Cry with Robert Smith of The Cure. Robert Smith! You know you got a great song in your hands when you have Robert Smith of The Cure as a feature. It's a fact. Look at All This by Blink-182 and How Not to Jump by Churches, and they'll tell you they're amazing. It's really cool to see Crosses again and see them making music again. So if you're a fan of Deftones but want a different sound, give it a chance because it's a pretty cool experience. And just like that, every elder emo heart was mended, with Fall Out Boy returning to rock with So Much for Stardust. Fall Out Boy had us pretty frustrated with just their initial comeback in the 2010s. But you know what they say, ask and you shall receive. So Much for Stardust is their return to rock, very adjacent to Folie à Deux, like they were picking it up and made it sound like the follow-up to Folie. With the lead single, Love from the Other Side came out, it brought the world by storm. Then the album came out and it won back many fans. The presence of the guitarist from Joe Struming is electrifying all throughout the album. The drumming from Andy Hurley is great depending on the tone of the song. And of course, Patrick Stum's vocals are just as fantastic as always. The sound and just the entire experience of Stardust was just so fun to hear. I get the complaints that many people have with their album with the lyrics, production, and the millennial loops in the album, and normally I would agree with those complaints for other albums. But with the case of Fall Out Boy, I think they were able to make those songs work, cause songs like Heartbreak Feels So Good and Flu Games, they're pretty fun. It's not just the return of rock that makes this album great. It's the other elements, from the symphonic elements of Heaven, Iowa, the horns, the violins of What a Time to Be Alive, and the apocalyptic sound of the title track. All these elements combined is what makes Stardust a fun album. It feels crazy to live in a time where Fall Out Boy is making great music again. What a time to be alive, I guess. You ever feel like venting all your frustrations in the world while being aggressive and sarcastic? Heart Attack Man's got you covered with their new album, Freak of Nature. If I could describe this album in one sentence, it's being offensive the right way. I know that sounds very off-putting, but when you hear Freak of Nature and listen to it in its entirety and read the lyrics, it makes sense. The band and their singer Eric has got some serious stuff over the years, and this album was made in order to lash out all that aggression into the world in the most sarcastic and sadistic way imaginable. Mainly it's just saying, fuck the world, you're gonna feel my wrath because I'm sick of all this shit, and you're gonna feel my pain. But it's all done in a way that's very fun and sarcastic in this very fun pop-punky hardcore mosh pit. Lashing out into the world to vent out the pain is the exact kind of music that I can't help but love. Songs like the title track do this well, but what makes this better than many of the other quote-unquote offensive bands is having that sense of self-awareness by being reflective and attacking oneself, like on Like a Kennedy or God Caught Off Today. I get that some will have problems with the lyrics of being edgy and vulgar, but it's not meant to be taken seriously. It's meant to have a fun time with some of the riffage, vocals, and the aggressive nature of the album that's meant to be taken fun. Look at the songs here. C4, 9 on Your Bedside, Stick Up, Clown School. They're too fun in the most unhinged way possible. They're not like offensive bands like Melor or Attila or Falling in Reverse or other bands who are offensive for the sake of being offensive. Ham attacks the world, but it's just for the release of all the pain and aggression with 2 giant middle fingers up in the air along with that self-awareness. That's what this type of music needs to be like. I'll admit, I was pretty late to the party with the Amity Collection. I've heard talk about the band in Metalore. I know some people love them, some don't. But after going through all their albums this year and hearing the new album Not Without My Ghost, I couldn't help but really enjoy what I've heard. And comparing this new album to their previous work, this is without a doubt their best and heaviest album within a decade. They truly made this album doing what they know what to do best. Making heavy metalcore music with their hearts on the sleeve and emotional on the lyrical level. They really stepped up to the plate here. Joel Birch's vocals sound his most aggressive in a while, and combined with Adrian's co-lead vocals made so many of the chords here catchy and impactful for the album. The guitars and the drums from Dan and Joe were relentless. They didn't hold back here. This thing is heavy as hell, like Show Me Your God and I See Dead People. 4 guest features here with Andrew of Comeback Kid, Landon of The Plot in You, alternative artist Fem, and rapper Louis Nux, RIP to him. All did a really great job with their features on their songs that they were on. I also thought that the songwriting was much more impactful here, especially on songs like Fade Away, Death and the Setting Sun, and the closing title track. Amity really challenged what made them great in the first place. They dug down deep into the emotional experiences they've been through and brought them to the forefront to make a great album. Fine job, boys. We need more females in rock and metal. That's a fact I think everyone can agree upon. Conquer Divide, an all-female metalcore hard rock band, showed their domination with their new album Slow Burn, their first album in 8 years since their self-titled debut in 2015. I heard the name before thanks to their feature on Fuckboy by Electric Callboy and heard that debut album. While I liked it, I wasn't completely on board yet. With Slow Burn, they won me over because this album rules. Conquer Divide made several improvements from the last album. From a production, writing, music quality, everything was improved big time and it made it click for me. Combining the metalcore sound with just little bits of pop and the melodic style of singing from Kia and Janelle made many of the songs here have fantastic choruses like Paralyzed and Atonement. Musically, Izzy, Samantha, and Kirsten made all the guitars and drums sound powerful and aggressive on songs like System Failure and Afterthought, but also lighter and melodic when needed, like on The Invisible or Wide Awake. I also felt that the lyrics here were the best part about this album. It's stuff we probably heard before, yeah, about broken relationships and personal and mental struggles, but it also feels very genuine, like they've been through all this stuff before. and that's shown on songs like Playing with Fire and Only Girls. It's something I feel that many people like myself can relate to. I was shocked with how much I enjoyed this album. I wasn't expecting to love this album as much as I did, and coming from an all-female group that are incredibly talented, that makes this album even better. Cause Lord knows we need more bands like this in a scene that's completely white and male as hell. Oh, Periphery, you pretentious sounding gent nerds. That's why I love you guys. Periphery came back with probably the best sounding title for an album. Periphery 5, Gent is not a genre. Gent is not a genre indeed because they really expanded their sound in many ways that prevents people from trying to pigeonhole them just by simply calling them gent. It's proggy, synthy, gent, metalcore, whatever the hell you want to classify Periphery as, but they make an experience that's delightful to hear. The guitars from Misha and Mark still continue to be crazy, atmospheric, and heavy while showing their creativity. The drumming from Matt matches them as well, going heavy when needed but lighter when needs to be softer. Spencer's vocals never fail to amaze me. He's still trying to find ways to make his voice sound amazing, and his vocals carry throughout all the songs here, like Atropos and Dying Star. It also doesn't follow the typical structure of generic metalcore, and hearing the passages and choruses makes you happy and sing along with many songs like Wildfire, Waxwings, and Thanks Nuovo, while unleashing the heaviness on songs like Everything Is Fine and Drag You Grass. This is yet another long and massive sounding album from the boys that's a lot to take in. 9 songs in about an hour and 10 minutes in length. But when you set the time to sit down and hear what they've done, you'll see just how much time and appreciation went into making sure that gent is not a genre. It's a lifestyle. Say it with me again, guys. We need more women in metal. One of the more recent surprises I wasn't even planning on checking out is the new album from Dying Wish, Symptoms of Survival. But I got curious and I'm really happy I checked it out. If you love classic 2000s metalcore but with more genres of deathcore and hardcore added, this is an absolute must hear. The best way I could describe this album: female kill switch engage. If that got your attention, then you'll need to hear this. This is a metalcore, deathcore, hardcore combination album that's aggressive and relentless, but also gives variety in tone from the vocals of Emma Foster. She's an incredible vocalist, lashing out harsh vocals when needed like the title track and Pray For Me. But what makes this album awesome is the smooth and clear transitions from the heavy to the clean vocals on the album, and it makes the music behind it sound beautiful in that regard. The music behind it is brutal and heavy. The drumming goes into overtime with how pounding the percussion is, and the guitarist will shred in anything into its way. If you want 3 songs to tell you how great this band is, listen to Path to Your Grave, Torn From Your Silhouette, and Lost in the Fall. All show the incredible talent that Dying Wish has to offer. This is only their 2nd album, and it sounds like they're only getting started with tapping to their true potential. If their wish was to keep going after Symptoms of Survival, then that wish isn't going to be dying anytime soon. My boys in Currents are back with their 3rd album, The Death We Seek, and man, I love this band. This band has been killing it the past few years, and they've been building a very strong fan base in metalcore. Currents aren't necessarily reinventing the wheel of metalcore, they're more like giving it a facelift to something more interesting and demolishing, and they did just that by making what I believe is their best album to date. The Death We Seek is a force to be reckoned with, because this thing goes straight for the throat. It has loads of heavy, gent-like riffs with some intricacies here that it satisfies the senses. I don't know, man, something about straight 1s and 0s just hit different. Many of the singles here, like the title track and Vengeance, had me excited, but it got even better when songs like Living in Tragedy and So Alone, as all of them are relentless, destructive, and have breakdowns that will crack your skull open. It's not just all breakdowns and gent riffs though. They were also able to make a lot of atmosphere along with the many solos and tones for the songs like Unfamiliar, Guide Us Home, and Remember Me being true standouts. Along with Brian's fearsome vocals, this album had no business going this hard, and they're only getting started with delivering more of the goods. But you're not arguably one of the biggest and most anticipated albums from the pop-punk indie emo sphere was the new album from Spanish Love Songs, No Joy. This was the follow-up to 2020's Brave Faces Everyone, which was everyone's album of the year for that year. If it wasn't yours, you're lying to yourself. Okay, jokes aside, lots of high expectations were placed here, but Spanish Love Songs made another amazing album about trying to find peace in the most utter turmoil and darkness. The musicality of this album feels like a natural progression from the previous album. The more indie acoustic sound combined with some of the electric sound is such a great fit for them on songs like Lifers, Rapture Chaser, and Haunted. Think of it as similar to bands like The Killers or Death Cab for Cutie. What makes this album and this band great are the lyrics and delivery of said lyrics from Dylan Slocum. His vocals sound like he's on the verge of a mental breakdown, and that's a compliment as kinda sad as that sounds. I say that because that emotion hits like a truck. The lyrics about grieving and death hit hard on Middle of Nine and Here You Are, but also tries to find hope in a dark world like re-emerging signs of the apocalypse. I'm still shocked with how this band not blown up yet. They're incredibly underrated, and it's up to you to give them that attention they deserve. One of my favorite bands of all time, Queens of the Stone Age, made their triumphant return with their 8th album, In Times New Roman. It's been a while since we last heard from this band for many reasons. Obviously, the COVID-19 pandemic was one of them, but also many personal struggles from Josh Homme. Him being the mastermind of Queens, he doesn't put out music until that inspiration hits, and that's exactly what we got on In Times New Roman. This is the ending of the trilogy from Like Clockwork and Villains, and I think it's an amazing closure to that trilogy. This album feels like a combination of some of their past albums like Lullabies to Paralyze and Era Vulgaris. It has also done much more of a sludgy style of stoner rock. Everything from the guitars, drums, bass, sounds so good to the ears, it's basically ear candy. The vocal harmonies and the playfulness of many of the songs just get you going that you just want to put it on repeat like Negative Space and Time and Place. Plus, the titles are all puns. Obscenery, Paper Machete, Carnivore, What the People Say, Emotion Sickness, Straight Jacket Fitting. Trust me, you got puns for days here. I know most people don't like Josh Homme for not being a good person and hard to work with, but this album was the result of several struggles from friends passing away, bitter divorce, court battles for his kid, cancer. This guy's been through the ringer, and while you don't have to like him, I think you can at least sympathize with him here. This record was fantastic and only contains my statement of this band being incapable of making bad music. They can do no wrong. This is a big one to talk about. I don't think any of us expected the tragedy of drummer Taylor Hawkins to happen. That left a giant hole in the Foo Fighters family and in rock in general. So needless to say, but here we are, wasn't going to be an easy listen. And while it's definitely not easy to hear, it's still a beautifully haunting listen and the best they sounded since Wasting Light. Taylor wasn't the only person we lost here, because Dave Grohl's mother also passed away too. The themes of death and trying to grieve from it, it's hard, especially for people who's experienced death before, like on The Glass or Hearing Voices. Despite it being a softer album, There's still plenty of energy here like the title track and nothing at all. That still has great hard rock from the Foos. Dave's style sounds great, the rest of the band still plays fantastically with their style of rock, but nothing is compared to the last two songs, The Teacher and Rest, which will turn on the waterworks instantly. It's safe to say that the Foo Fighters aren't going anywhere. They have Josh Freese as their new drummer, who's a great choice, and I know they'll do Taylor justice. R.I.P. to Taylor Hawkins and Virginia Grohl. They'll forever be missed. This is probably going to be the one band on here no one has ever heard before. So let me make sure you listen to Recovery by Tequil Achilles, a Scottish metalcore hardcore punk band. And if you're one of those people who were let down by the new Beartooth album, which I personally enjoyed that album, but I get if others didn't, you'll love this album because it's basically if Beartooth continued their sound from Disgusting, except much more emotional and updated than that album. Musically, this album is aggressive with hardcore punk meets metalcore that's fun and heavy on songs like Rats and Where the Lights Go Out, but also has great catchy choruses like on Chemical Counterpart and 15 Years. The lyrics on this album though, they're on a complete another level of raw emotion for vocalist Mark Steppi. Everything from people being glued to their phones on Ghost Town to dealing with depression and death on Blue and The Cave, which combine elements of house music too. The way that everything is delivered is almost too much to handle at times. It's like on Law Dispute levels of emotion. I dare you to listen to The Cave without choking up. It's impossible. Recovery will not be for everyone, especially if you dealt with this kind of stuff before, but it's worth hearing. It's also better than Eminem's Recovery, that's for sure. I think this album holds the title for being the biggest surprise for me this year. Holding Absence wasn't a name I was familiar with until this year, until I heard about their album, The Noble Art of Self-Destruction. I was curious about this album, and after I finished it, I was head over heels for Holding Absence. The Noble Art of Self-Destruction is one of the best and most emotive post-hardcore albums I've heard in quite a long time. God, I love this album. This album has such an emotive feeling that really brings out the emotion out of the listener easily. That's not something every album is capable of doing. One of the reasons why this record is so great are the vocals from Lucas Woodland. His voice is absolutely incredible as it soars all across the album, like on Crooked Melody and Liminal. The music itself is just sublime, as this post-hardcore that's played with so much emotion behind it that it hits differently than most music, especially on the opener Head Prison Blues and the amazing Her Wings, which was one of my favorite songs of the year. The production here is incredible, as many of the songs fade into each other, and I love it when albums do that. It feels like it's one cohesive journey. Listen to the transition of False Dawn to Scissors. It's almost jarring, but also genius that they made the transition work. This was just an absolutely beautiful album. One that just sparks emotion in every single way possible. Of all the bands I got into this year, Holding Absence might have been my favorite that I fell in love with. I seriously don't know how this band keeps making great albums every single time. Silent Planet always makes incredible metalcore music that further advances in the genre every time, and Super Bloom is no exception. Initially, I was nervous because this was the first album without Thomas on bass, who left to have a kid. But when I heard Super Bloom, all my fears were gone because this album was excellent. Silent Planet continues to be a heavy and lyrically deep band. Super Bloom was released on the 1-year anniversary of the deadly van accident that happened to them on November 3rd, 2022. Much of that trauma from Garrett Russell was an influence for this album and its lyrics. so it's already a deep and personal album from that alone. Musically, this album is insane. Grounded chaos is the best way to describe it. Electronic elements are spread all over this album, combined with the insane drumming and jet-like riffs, unpredictability, and chaotic energy giving off in every song like Euphoria, Dreamwalker, Nexus, Offworlder. Collider has one of Garrett's best vocals ever here, and Antimatter got the band more attention that they absolutely needed. Garrett's vocals went a completely another level. He really outdid himself here. The closing track is one of the most beautiful and most haunting songs they've ever done, and after hearing it, it'll send a chill down your spine. There is a reason why Silent Planet is one of the best metalcore bands these days. They make music that's unconventional, deep, chaotic, and continue to forefront of what metalcore can be instead of the status quo. This might just be the best album Movements has ever made. As someone who's been listening to them for quite a while, I can confidently say Ruckus was an absolute joy to listen to. The style of post-hardcore that Movements has been doing is always great with their spoken word and emo influences, but Ruckus, they one up everything here. The guitars from Ira are blistering and fierce, while the bass from Osenke creates the backbone of Ruckus. The grooves and the tones from the songs are amazing, and they change from being fiery, upbeat, and punky, like on Lead Pipe and the opener You're One of Us Now, to something more chill and slower on others. Spencer York's drumming here is crazy. He killed it on here, with many of the songs calling to be upbeat or calmer. Patrick's vocals, man, he sounds amazing and shows a variety of emotions here, from being happy, love-struck, angry, or depressed. That's what really makes this album amazing. The way that many emotions are being poured out like a waterfall on every song. There are songs like Tightrope and Heaven Sent, the latter which has like a flute-like sound that reminds me of the ocarina from Legend of Zelda. That just makes me happy to hear them. Then there are others which are more punky and upbeat, like Feel You, I Hope You Choke, and Dance with Death. There's a reason why Will Yip is a savior as a producer in emo. He really brings the best out of every band he works with, and he did just that with Movements. Seeing them make quite possibly the best album in their career just puts a smile on my face. And when a band does this effortlessly, you know you got an amazing band. There have been many tragedies that have happened in the music world over the past few years, but none of them hit me more personally than the tragic passing of Ryan So, the guitarist of Polaris. Even though all of his work was already recorded before his passing, I knew that this was going to be a tough listen, but Polaris' new album, Fatalism, was not only their best album, but also the most emotional and heaviest album they've made. The band stepped it up here. This band always creates atmosphere to match the style of the song being played. They always take their time and release that emotion with giant catharsis in the music, lyrics, and vocals. The vocals from Jamie and Jake always gel together nicely, and they got even better on Fatalism, bringing that urgency to the listener. They added industrial elements on songs like Inhumane and Harbinger, but also bringing much more of the emotional moments on songs like Overflow and With Regards that really show the pain that they're going through. The guitars and drumming on here is some of the heaviest I heard in metalcore this year. Ryan absolutely played his heart out before his passing, like on Parasites, All in Vain, and especially Dissipate, which has one of the best breakdowns I've heard in a long time. But going from that into Aftertouch, guys, you really made me cry with how much of a tearjerker this song and this album truly is. The crazy thing is that even though this was made before Ryan's passing, it hit a lot harder than I expected. I cried and headbanged the entire listen, and honestly still am trying to process everything. But I know Ryan's looking down at his brothers, and is just as proud as we are. RIP Ryan, thank you for your amazing work, and thank you to Polaris for keeping Ryan's legacy alive. From the EP release of The Sun Sleeps As It Never Was, I knew Event Anime were on the verge of making something great. Now with Heavener being released, I am convinced that this album is going to be the measuring stick and a shining example of how to make great modern metalcore. I was completely floored with how amazing Event Anime was able to make Heavener just as amazing as it is. This album has genty, progressive-like riffs, but also creates the most emotional atmosphere I felt in a metalcore album in years. The emotion that is carried out by Marcus Vick. His vocals are absolutely incredible as he's able to be aggressive, emotional, and peaceful while being able to change styles in a blink of an eye. That combined with the heavy guitars and the drumming will give you chills. So many of the songs here all do this together in many songs like Shade Astray, Without a Whisper, Absence Persistence, and Purity Weeps. There is also a sense of unpredictability here which breaks free from the generic metalcore format that's been plaguing us for years. Some of the unpredictability shown is on some of the heaviest songs here like False Meridian and Immolation of Night. No skippable songs here. Every song sparks with riffs and breakdowns for days, and the album is just an amazing experience. This was made even better after seeing them live this year on their North American tour in October, and it was one of the best shows I've been to all year. Event Anime have a future classic in the making. There's a reason why many people gave this album praise. It's metalcore far different and superior to 80% what we've been hearing on the radio. Bands should take influence from Event to stand out. Ladies and gentlemen, children of all ages, it's time to show my album of the year for 2023. That award goes to Sleep Token with Taking Back to Eden. I know there was a lot of divisiveness on this album. Some people loved it, some people hated it. I get why some people didn't like this album, but my god, this was just an album I needed in my life. It came to me at the most unexpected time and swallowed me whole. Taking Back to Eden excelled in improving many ways after the previous two albums, from the production, vocal, and music. So it combined so many different genres of metal, prog, pop, R&B, and a lot of other stuff too. They had us excited with Chokehold and The Summoning with how different they've evolved from their music, but when the album released, it shook the whole world, minds were blown, and babies were made on May 19th, 2023. This combination of genres is something that makes their music unparalleled and different than what really anyone is doing while making it sexy, like genuinely sexy. This is not about sex. God damn it, Scott Stapp, this does not involve you. Go back to making your solo album next year. That mysterious allure of Vessel and the other members makes this experience even better. There are songs like Granite and Rain that sound amazing to the ears with blissful pianos, electronics, combined with the heavy guitars. Then there are songs like the title track and Ascensionism that combines everything together amazingly. It blows my mind how it all flows smoothly. Vessel's vocals are incredible and has such variety. His voice is smooth on Aquaregia, but also fierce on Vor. Taking Back to Eden is an experience that was so wonderful, and it was done in the most dark, twisted, depressed, and also sexy way possible. I came back to this album so much, and I love this album from front to back. Look, y'all can say what you want, and I really do not care what you say about this album or Sleep Token. All I know is that Taking Me Back to Eden is the best album of 2023. Worship at the feet of the altar. Well, that was fun. It's time to end this season and to look forward to next year. Remember, these were all my opinions, what I thought were the best albums of the year. So let me know what you thought were the best albums of 2023. A lot of work was put into here, so leave a like, comment, and subscribe for more content. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.